Welcome back, brother.
Welcome back, brother.
It's
So
funny,
like,
like
okay,
we were both like looking at each other like, are you gonna do the intro? Am I gonna do the
exactly.
intro? Like this is what
It's
happens when you take a bunch of time away from the podcast and you come back and
yeah,
it's like, okay, let's find our flow again.
yeah, and it's so funny because before, I mean, it's if we would be, I think it would be the same if we are physically present with each other in a room in a studio, and then like, okay, let's first chat. Like, of course, when we meet, then we try to catch up and like see how you are, and then we
Yeah.
immediately start with going in deep conversations as soon as we see each other, and then like, okay, maybe we should just hit record and stop here because we will lose the momentum of
Yeah.
these very interesting topics. So yeah, as I said before we hit record, I think it would be beautiful to catch up and also hear about where you've been. I know that you've had a very profound experience, another very deep experience in nature. And we also just talked about achieving goals and how um, to see it maybe also from a spiritual perspective. What is a goal? What is reaching to your higher self, or to unfold the isness of the moment? And maybe we can do the full circle
Yeah.
by just
Yeah.
starting listening to your story. And I would really love to hear it because I haven't actually heard a lot about it at all.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a way doing the same thing that you did to me with your hike of like we had to jump on the podcast in order for me to actually like hear
Exactly.
like how did things transpire. Like I got little snippets of it, just kind of how I shared a little snippets with you, but
Yeah.
um it was a really profound experience in surrendering to the moment.
Mhm.
And like the reason I want to open up with making that statement is because we my really really good friend Scott, who I've known since I was like 2 or 3 years old, he's
Mhm.
actually named after my dad because his dad and my dad were best friends growing up.
Yeah.
And so um it's always really special to like spend time with him because he literally is like my oldest friend, even though we
Mm.
had probably a I don't know, our dads had a falling out, and so there was probably a 15, almost 20-year period of time where we didn't see each other anymore, and at
Right.
that point in time, because I was so young when we
Mm.
were first friends, like, I forgot. And
Yeah.
then we actually started working together, and we lived 3 doors down from one another in the same condo building, and one day, on the way home, realized, like, "You're named after my dad." We both called our dads and was like, "Oh, holy shit, like, we've actually known each other for a really long time." And it was like friendship just immediately solidified and
That's
has just kind of
interesting.
been that way ever since. So he's the one that really got me into hiking and backpacking.
Mm.
And last year, him and a buddy who have been doing these pretty big backpacking trips over like anywhere
Mm.
from 3 to 5 days every year for about 13 years invited me to go. And so
Yeah.
now this is my second year going, and we had planned for the whole last year we were going to hike a section of the John Muir Trail down in the Sierra Nevadas in
Mm.
California. We had plane tickets, we had permits, like we had everything scheduled. And the week before, a massive monsoon storm started rolling up from Mexico, and it hit Texas, it hit New Mexico, it hit
Yeah.
Arizona, it hit Nevada, and it hit Southern California. And
Gosh.
so what was supposed to be, according to like the yearly averages, a
Yeah.
perfect 70 to 80 degree time turned out to be it was going to be anywhere from the low 40s to the mid
Mm.
60s and thunderstorms the entire time.
Gosh. I mean, you were lucky that you haven't been on the trip already
Oh, thank
before
God for
that storm.
technology, right?
just
Like,
just imagine.
yeah, being able
Holy.
to look ahead and see what things are potentially
Yeah.
going to be like. And so we had to call an audible last minute. And it was
Yeah.
like it's not safe for us to be between 10 and almost 13,000 feet the entire time in thunderstorms. Like
No,
if you're listening and you know
that's not
anything about
fun.
being out in nature, being high in altitude when there's thunder
Mm.
and lightning is not a safe thing. So we made the smart decision to shift plans. And so myself and Scott canceled our flights. Thankfully, we were able to cancel them fully and get credit back for those. And then we were able to get Evan to change his flight from Southern California to Seattle. And we decided to double our hike. Instead of 36 miles, we went we went a little over 65 miles. And we went from Stevens Pass to Snoqualmie Pass on the Pacific Crest Trail, which, if you're big into hiking, you've probably heard of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a trail that runs from the border of Mexico to the border of California and goes all the way up through California, Oregon, and Washington. Beautiful, beautiful hike. I mean, literally just views for days every single day. And so, one, we're starting off the trip going somewhere that we had 3 days to prepare and create maps and create a route and figure out where we were going to camp. And fortunately, Scott has already done parts of this section, but he hadn't done the entire trip that we were going to do. And so him and I were going back and forth creating GPS maps and like getting it coordinated and solidified.
Yeah.
And then day one, we are probably what on the map was saying we were about 1.5 miles away from our campsite. And we get to where we're supposed to start taking this pass that's kind of like a shortcut pass to get to the lake that's on the other side of the mountain, to where we're going to camp that night. And we get to the trail and there's a sign that says trail abandoned. And you can see where a rock slide had come through and just totally took out the trail.
Yeah.
So again, had to call an audible and take a different route that then added another 1.3 miles to the trip and added even more elevation. And poor Evan, he's on 3 hours of sleep coming from Florida to Seattle. So he's dealing with jet lag, and he's got blisters already starting on his feet. Like, day one and day two were not great days for him, just trying to recuperate from the jet lag. And so that's kind of like how things continued to go throughout the trip. There were certain points where we just had to make decisions of shifting and pivoting. And how do we deal with where we're at right now? One section we found ourselves where we skipped over on day 2 a water crossing where we should have filled up and grabbed extra water because there was no water crossing for the next 6 miles.
Yeah.
So we had to ration 0.5 liter of water over 6 miles, which going up, I mean, it would be one thing if it was just all flat, but it was between 85 and 90 degrees. We were going up almost 2,000 feet of elevation gain right in the heat of the day. So we're sweating profusely. And we were probably 3/4 of a mile, and Evan and I like kind of continually gradually started to slow down more and more and more. And thankfully Scott still had the energy because he pushed forward and got to the next water source, chugged a bunch of water himself, filled up 2 liters of water, and then ran it back to us. And it was like, oh my God, life. Like, literally could feel my body starting to just energy increase, starting to feel better. Like it's amazing how quickly dehydration can start to set in and you don't really realize it. And then once you start hydrating again, especially with like electrolytes added in there, it's like, I was way further gone than what I was aware. So like this was a huge wake up call for us on day 2 of like, we didn't have a really, really snowy winter. It was actually a really mild winter for us, which equates to less water throughout the summer months, which equates to, hey, if you're above 5,000 feet in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness in Washington, pretty much guarantee that everything's going to be dry until you get to like a lake or something like that. And even the creeks running off the lakes were tiny. Like it just was a drier season. And so it was a really, really good testament for one, like, how can we support one another? How can we look after one another? And, like I made the decision to hang back with Evan because I knew he was suffering, and I was honestly equally suffering that second
Mm,
day too, because my feet were just killing me. Because that's another thing, like, you know, you probably very well know, like
mm,
dehydration can lead to like your feet becoming really, really sensitive.
mm,
And so add that to rocks and roots and just
mm,
constant like pounding your feet down on the trail, because we were descending for the whole, I don't know, it was like last 3 miles of that second day.
mm. And you're
Um,
packing for a whole week. I mean, that's a
oh yeah,
lot of weight.
I started the trip with 42 pounds in my pack with
Shoot.
all my food
Yeah.
and water, and ended the trip at 35 pounds.
Mm,
So I ended up carrying extra weight because I wasn't really sure, you know, I'm still trying to figure out my food supply. Being
mm,
vegan, I do have to bring a little bit more food, because just to
mm.
get plenty of protein and plenty of carbs and calories and everything, I just have to eat a little bit more. The hard part is it's like, how do you find things that are calorically dense and not dense in weight too?
Yeah, I
And
know. We
that's
talked
always the
about it.
challenge. Yeah.
Then there's no beef jerky
Yeah.
substitute for vegans. That's the thing. Yeah.
Granted, I did make some of my own beef jerky out of a product called soy curls,
Yeah, I mentioned that.
which is really great, but that's weighty too. Like after you rehydrate it and then you add any flavorings and
Right.
stuff to it, I mean, it weighs pretty much the same as actual jerky. So
Mm, mm,
that's dense. Um, and really, I thought I did a great job preparing for the hike.
mm,
And I did a great job preparing for a 36-mile hike.
mm,
But 65 miles, furthest I'd ever gone on a singular trip. 6 days backpacking was the longest I'd ever gone on a singular trip.
mm.
Um, and really, like, my body wasn't accustomed and I think prepared for the amount of toll. Like my watch still says I'm at 49% recovery, and it's been almost 2 weeks. You know, and I haven't been working out. I've still been doing my walks. But it just goes to show
Mm,
the body is actually capable of doing so much more than what we give it credit for.
yeah.
This is the limiting factor. Our
Mm,
mind is the limiting factor. And those
mm,
days where
mm,
it
mm.
was hard because I kept on thinking about how much my feet hurt. I kept on thinking about and looking at my watch and being like, okay, I've only got another 2 miles. Okay, I've
Yeah,
only got
yeah.
another 1.8 miles. Okay, I've only got another 1.5 miles. Like having this metric of things closing down, and that actually came to a head on the very last day,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at my watch
When
and
you
I'm like,
said
okay, we've
that.
got 1.3 miles, and but there's a turnoff that we got to get to, and we missed the turnoff.
Mm,
And it ended up, my watch took about zero point 0.2 miles before it beeped at me and told me that I was off route.
mm,
And I stopped and I was like, hey guys, we're off route. And Scott's like, no, we're not. We're on the PCT. Like we just got to keep going and we'll join up with the parking lot. And I'm like, no, the map says we needed to turn back there. And then we only had 1.3 miles. I'm looking at the map and I'm like, if we continue, we've got 2.3 miles.
mm.
And I mentally was not prepared for an extra mile because my feet were done. I was ready to get off the trail,
Yeah, yeah.
and I lost it.
Mm,
I like mentally, I just at that point I broke, and I just turned around and I just kicked it up to 10. Like we
mm,
were typically traveling anywhere from like 2 to 2.5 miles an hour, and I was going at like 3.5 miles an hour. Like dang near jogging down this trail because I just wanted to be done. But I also was really frustrated with like, it was the final point where my ego was like, there was a plan, and this is another
mm,
time where things didn't go to plan. And I just didn't have the capacity to stay in my window of tolerance anymore.
yeah, yeah.
And like, I kind of snapped at Scott a little bit about like, you know, this was the way we were supposed to go. And now we're going a different way. And now it's harder because
Mm,
the original plan for the trip was it was going to be like 58 miles.
mm,
And Scott's one of those people that like he knows navigation well enough, and he was carrying the paper map, I was carrying the digital map, and there were a few points where he was like, no, we need to go this way, and I'm like, no, but the map says that we need to go this way. Like, my map says we need to go this way. He wanted to go that way because it was going to add a little bit more mileage, because he wanted to break 60 miles. And so it's like, this is kind of where we got into, like, all of us kind of had our own agenda of what we thought the trip was going to look like. But when you're hiking with multiple people, there's compromises that end up happening. And, this was supposed to be Evan's year to plan things. And he planned this 36-mile hike, not a 60-mile hike. He lives in Florida, where the highest place he can get to is like 800 feet. And we did almost 4,000 feet of gain in the first day. So it's like all of these points of, one, being able to recognize where maybe our goal and our dream pushes another person beyond where they have the capacity to go. Or maybe our goal and our dream isn't lofty enough to bring somebody along. So like this kind of is the point that I was trying to get to in saying all of this, is like, how can we surrender to where life is trying to take us, instead of being so attached to our dreams, our aspirations, and our desires, that we miss the turnoff. We miss the shortcut to getting to where our soul, our authentic expression, whatever way you want to look at it, our purpose is trying to navigate us towards.
Yeah, thank you for sharing so many wisdom bombs in packed in it, because it's so beautiful. Like every part of the story has like a deeper entrance to go into. Like, first of all, hearing you talking about the situation that we are facing with the water and this inclinage, and then Scott was going further, right, to
Yeah,
coming back
well,
with the
so
water.
we were kind of trading back and forth that day, and my mistake is that when I get into the lead, they nicknamed me on the trail Jackrabbit, because I just have a faster pace. Like, my body naturally wants to move, according to my watch, throughout that trail. It's like 2.7 miles an hour. That's just what feels normal to me, to just move at that pace. So the last ascent that we did that day, I broke off and I just went at my pace. And it was in like open exposed sun the majority of the time. And I pushed myself way further than I should have, with less water, with more mileage still left to go. That even though it was the descents are harder for my body.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Especially with weight on my back.
Yeah.
And so I waited for Scott and Evan up at the top before we started our descent down to the lake that we were going to be able to be staying at. And Scott decided, because he was the one that was feeling really good, that he was going to lead. And so he did the same thing. He broke off and went at his own pace, and thankfully had the energy to be able to, I mean, honestly, like, if it was a couple more miles that we had to go, I don't know how bad dehydration would have really started setting in, because I was starting to feel sick by the time we actually got to our campsite, and was like that huge wake up call. Like, man, stuff can get serious quick in the backcountry.
Very, very quick. Yeah, I totally feel you. Like, I know exactly how that feels, being on a hike and then having no water, and then the body starts to dehydrate. Awful, a very, very awful situation, where you need strength, and you literally feel with every step how your strength is becoming less and less, and headache starts, and Yeah, I totally know that. And the beauty in this story, because there you had like this benefit of being together with a group.
Yeah.
So you can split apart. One goes for the water, comes back, and by that, um, having the group, let's say, rehydrated, so that everyone
Yeah.
feels better. So there, this um, relation that we have with each other, that in critical situations, it's better to be in a group than alone, right? Because there's more variability. Scott has more energy
Mhm.
in that moment, so he can go down and up again and bring some water. And but on the other side, and is what I meant. Like in every point, you have a deeper, you can go deeper. On the other side, like there, you also have your own aspiration, your own dreams, your own goals. And if you're in a group, then and everyone is connected with his own ego and his own
Yeah.
pursuit of this trip, then it it creates friction, right? It creates like tension, and how to see this the beauty in it being in a group and learn from it, because we are always learning in relation with each other, but not to be too much attached in one own's um, pursuit or one own's goal, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I love what you said. Like not clinging to your own um, dreams, but still be more in the moment and appreciate what is
Right.
what is unfolding in front of you. Because if you were not in that situation with Scott and Evan, then you wouldn't see that part of you that was snapped, that snapped, right? That
Hmm.
where you lost your, where you went out of your window of tolerance, which is good, because it shows you like, okay, there is my, this is my window of tolerance. This
Yeah.
is my space where I still be responsible. And if I cross that, oh, then I become reactive. So it's a gift, right?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of experience for you to getting to understand more about yourself. And yeah, I was talking with you before we had record about goals and about like we are all having our dreams, our I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that, right? I want to do the 60-mile hike and see then like how I grew into it and become something bigger.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I was wondering, is there really a goal? Because if we are just focusing on our goal, we are missing the the process that we experience while we are on the path towards the goal. So the whole hike is the experience. It's not like the 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 end of
Yeah.
the hike, right? Like, oh, we managed it. We came back to the parking lot. That was our goal. That's not a
So
goal, right?
it it's interesting that you bring this up, and one of the reasons why I love hiking and backpacking so much is because there's so many valuable life lessons that you
Mm,
learn through hiking and backpacking that are applicable to everything. And I was having a conversation with one of my one-on-one clients about this yesterday, where
mm,
sometimes when you're in the thick of it in life, like
mm,
take the example of when I blew up on the trail because we missed our turnout and then now I've got to go another mile than what I
mm,
thought I was going to have to go.
mm,
It in the thick of it, I couldn't see the path through was that the whole reason why we were staying on that trail was because it was to be able to finish on the PCT,
yeah.
because we spent the majority of the time on the PCT. So it was in a
Mm,
way our ability, like myself, Scott, Evan, we don't have the freedom in our life to take 4 to 6 months off and go hike the PCT.
mm, mm,
I'd love to, but it's
mm,
just not feasible. So
mm,
for us, doing sections of it over periods of time in our life, eventually we'll be able to get to do the whole thing if we
mm,
do it a section at the time. So like
yeah.
But when I was in the thick of it, I couldn't see it. And the reason that this is applicable is because it's sometimes on the trail, especially when you're going uphill, it's
Mm.
difficult to see the path forward. You can really
Mm.
only sometimes see a very short distance before maybe you get to a switchback and it turns the other way. But from a lower vantage point, you can't see that.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you're
Yeah.
at the top of the mountain and you're looking down, you can
Mhm.
see the path winding down. You can see it
Mm.
further off in the distance. At certain sections of the hike, when we finally, like on day 2, we got to the top and I could see the lake. I could
Mm.
see the
Mm.
final destination. It was like, oh, there is hope at the end of this tunnel. I
Mm.
can
Mm.
see the end. But going up, I couldn't see that. And
Mm.
so it's
Mm.
like how easy when you can't see it, when you're in the thick of it, that the mind can start running all of the stories that can actually make the suffering worse than it actually is,
Right.
because we're
Yeah.
allowing the mind to try and control the situation.
Exactly. Beautifully said. Yeah. Exactly. The I won't call it problem, but that's what is always taking so much space in us and creating this suffering, because our mind is creating uh, an experience which not necessarily has to do with what is at the
Right,
moment,
right.
right? It's like the fears, the frustration, because it's not according to the mind's goal, how it should be. Like, we always think that a certain situation has to be in a certain way, and if it's falling from that, um, from how we imagine how it should be, then we get frustrated, right? Then
Hmm.
we get scared, we're frightened. All of these emotions are kicking in because what our mind is doing, and what we as rational beings, of course, due to evolution, which is a beautiful survival protection mechanism to be with this prefrontal cortex conscious. It's like to plan ahead. Like, I am planning ahead, and that gives me a lot of advantage, because then I can plan my way, so I reduce factors that could harm me, where I maybe fall off the trail and die, right?
Hmm.
So this planning ahead is very, very strict wired, and then, like, it has to be according to the plan. But as soon as we not just be in this survival mechanism, and try to also come into our other senses and our other parts of our being, which are conscious too, which also gives us this perspective of, as you said, like seeing the totality of it, being on the mountain, although you are on the path, but with consciousness to be more expanded and see, like, okay, everything is fine. I'm here right now, and this is what I need to experience. This is what I need to experience. Maybe also the suffering is part of it,
Right.
but not judging it, not being in this frustration, not being in this battle, this inner battle of, God damn it, we missed the turning point, or we you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
this constant battle that we are having in us, and which leaks out. I mean, when you went then in to this conflict with your group, it was due to the inner battle that you had, right?
Oh,
That you also
100%.
described. Like, you
100%.
were frustrated, like, oh, I have the information on my watch, and damn, I was not
I
listening to
missed
myself.
it.
Exactly.
That's the thing I was, and it's funny that you bring this up because it took me about 3/4 of a mile to get to this realization,
Mm.
to where the emotion flipped, right? Like,
Mm.
we teach takes 90 seconds for the emotion to move
Yeah.
through. It takes 90 seconds for the emotion to move through if you're not attached to the emotion.
Mm.
But
Otherwise,
if you're
loop.
attached to the emotion, then it just becomes a loop, and it comes
Yeah.
an endless 90 seconds where
Exactly.
the emotion is going to continually present you with the opportunity to let it go.
Mm.
And if you
Mm.
don't let it go, okay, then it restarts again.
Yeah.
And I finally got to the realization that I'm not actually upset at Scott. I'm not even
Mm.
upset that we're having to do another mile. I'm
Mm.
upset that I was the one in front and I missed the turn.
Yeah.
I was the one navigating. I was the one driving the ship at that point.
Mm.
I'm the one that added the mile to the trip.
Mm. Mm.
And as soon as I had that realization, it was like all the anger just dissipated out of my body, just went
Mhm.
straight through my feet into the ground. And I just felt shame. I
Yeah.
just felt like, God, okay, I just got upset at these guys for something that wasn't their fault.
Mm.
And
Mm.
granted, we could have all made the decision to just turn around, go back, and go down the other way.
Mm.
But it's kind of like that when you're on the trail and you're going in the direction, like the last thing you want to do is turn around and go the opposite way. Like you just want
Yeah.
to keep going forward.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so thankfully I had reception at this point and I was messaging with my wife because she was picking us up at the parking lot. I was like, hey, can you stop off at the gas station and grab a couple of beers for Scott and Evan? Because they had joked a couple of times on the trail at like how nice it would be to just like have a beer waiting at the end of it. And so that was like my olive branch to them. And like I didn't say anything to them. I
Mm.
just let Rachel kind of surprise them with the beers, and like the look on their faces when that happened was like, okay,
Mm.
that made it worth it, because
Yeah.
I then just made up for what I projected onto them by giving them a gift. And that is like such a profound point of growth for just
Mm.
myself,
Mm.
of how quickly I was able to bring myself back from a spiral of getting out of my, window of
Mm.
tolerance,
Mm. Mm.
to then make amends for something that I said, taking responsibility. And like I
Mm.
waited for them. There's a little picnic table right at the end of the trail. I was sitting at the picnic table when they got there, and Scott was immediately like, hey dude, sorry we had like a miscommunication. And I was like, you don't have to apologize. This was
Mm.
all on me.
Mm.
It had
Mm.
nothing to do with you guys. It was all, and I just communicated to them what I realized
Mm.
and
Mm.
shared with them where I was coming from in what I experienced, so that
Mm.
not only was it a growth point for me, it was a growth point for all of us to be able to
Yeah.
recognize like every single one of us had a moment on the trail throughout that trip where it was like we got out of our window of tolerance and kind of got pissed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Which
part
is,
of it. That's life.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I mean, this is exactly what happens if you're in extreme situations, right?
Yeah.
And this is where bonding is happening too.
Yep.
Like because of experiencing these difficulties, like snapping and maybe also being in a little fight with each other, all of that is part of the bonding process if you allow it then to bond. And it's interesting hearing you say also, um, hearing you say that you had this loop of the emotions that was kicking in and you could
Mhm.
not let go of it right in that moment, which then further and further brought you out of your window of tolerance, further like brought you into your survival response. And then you snapped and then you came back. And this is I think very, very important because, and I mean, I know about your inner work, and I know that you spend a lot of time of self-inquiry. So you trained also to witness your mind.
Mhm.
So you know, okay, now I see my mind. I see the thoughts that are coming up. I see the emotion that is coming up. Maybe being angry at one of your friends, or like, but seeing it is something different as being it.
Yeah.
And there the loop can continue. So what the point that I want to make is, when you were in a friction with your friends, um, if you now stay to that story, if you identify with that story, then we will create another emotional loop,
Right.
which will continue with fight with like, I don't want to be with you, I hate you, and you probably would go separated ways after the hike, right? And this
Yeah.
is what happens in daily life too, when we are in struggle in an argument with someone else. Yeah, to realize that they were just the trigger, that in myself there's something not aligned, there is a
Right.
wound. So the other is always pointing, it's not the cause, it's not like the person's fault, it's like they are pointing to something in you that is not integrated, pointing towards a wound. And as soon as we realize that this is a pointer, like the relation that we have with others are pointers to us back where we are not integrated, and to use sense like, oh, okay, I see it now. I see it was something in me that was not integrated. Because probably if you just go deeper into why you were frustrated, why a certain emotion came up, then you can probably trace it back to events in your past, right?
Mm.
There must be a wound that is maybe not being able to speak up in that moment, to tell them what you feel, what you think. All of these patterns that are suppressed in us are then pointed by others, and it hurts. It hurts to feel that, right? Because this is why there's a reason why we suppress it. We don't want to feel it. But being able to see that also after, when like after processing the emotion, after maybe being in this fight or flight, coming back and say, okay, this happened, let's reflect. Okay, this is what actually was pointing towards, so towards me. This is the wound. So it's not Scott's fault, it's not Evan's fault, it's no one's fault. It's even not my fault.
Right.
Who knows what I'm carrying, which energy that was, who created this wound. It doesn't matter, but it's no one's fault. And I think this is a beauty. So then to come back to each other and say like, okay, let's grab a beer and let's celebrate what we went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this is beautiful.
Well, and it's interesting because part of the realization, and it's funny at how things can still continue to unfold for you while you're experiencing other things.
Mm.
Like that whole situation kind of brought a lot of the realizations that I had throughout the entirety of that trip to a culmination. It was like, we talk about integration and breath work all of
Mm.
the time of like,
Mm.
how can you integrate all of the messages and insights you received from a session? And like, you could look at that hike as a session in a way. It was a journey, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like for things to continue to unfold and to realize like the reason I couldn't let go of that being angry was because I was projecting that anger onto other people. I was
Mm.
projecting the responsibility onto other people. The moment
Mm.
that I
Mm.
took responsibility for what was happening and what happened,
Mm.
it dissipated.
Mm.
So
Mm.
so it's like ownership is one of the biggest things that for me throughout my journey has
Yeah.
really helped to quickly move things through my system, to quickly like let go of some of those beliefs, let go of some
Mm.
of those thoughts,
Mm.
let go of many of the things that had been projected onto me throughout my life,
Mm.
and just take ownership for what I can take ownership for and let go of all
Mm.
the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean this is for a pattern that you are carrying, which resonates 100% also with me. We have very similar patterns, and this is like the victimhood mentality,
Yeah.
and like taking ownership and not falling into the victimhood. That is immediately like turning point, like immediately getting out of the pain body um, of the trauma response. So yeah, this is very powerful. And I think this is also why we are talking also when we started with this podcast about masculine energy and to integrate
Mhm.
it. It's part of it, this masculine energy that is also taking responsibility and being in this owner, like taking ownership of your own of yourself. This is something that for me is absolutely the path that I'm walking to. So to really come more and more into this realization of no, it's no one's fault. It's me. I have to take responsibility and to say like, okay, whatever happens in me is I'm responsible for that,
Yeah.
and everything is happening in me. Like you are not responsible for my emotion. You're
Right.
not responsible that I feel bad. It's in me,
Yeah.
and yeah, it makes totally sense. And I would just love to because before we hit record, you were also sharing a very beautiful story um, around the conversation that you had with Scott or with Evan,
Oh, with Scott. Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Scott
And
about spirituality.
yeah, so it's like I shared with you, Scott comes from a background of like nursing and science and like very into that. And I've never known
Mm.
him to be religious or spiritual in any way. I always like to just kind of like poke at those subjects to kind of, like see where maybe some seeds can start
Mm-hmm.
sprouting. And on the fourth day of our trip, we had this amazing campsite that was just looking at this beautiful range of mountains. And for those watching on Spotify and YouTube, I'll go ahead and pop up a picture so you guys can kind of see, like, Scott took my absolutely favorite photo of that entire trip, this
Mm.
beautiful panoramic of that mountain range. And I'm
That's
standing right
beautiful.
next to a tree, and he did it in black and white. So it like really showcased the like, because it was kind of overcast and cloudy. It wasn't really super pretty necessarily in that
Mm.
regard because
Mm.
everything was kind of hazy, but just the way that the light was coming down through the clouds
Mm.
and turning that
Mm.
photo into a black and white was just magical.
Yeah.
But he said something as, he was taking a bunch of other photos, and I took some time lapses during sunset. And after, like, once the sun was kind of winding down and we were getting ready to head back to where our campsite was, a little ways away from where we were watching sunset on the ridge, he was like, being in front of mountains like these and witnessing mountains like these is almost a spiritual experience. Made me pause for a second. I was like, what did I just hear come out of his mouth? And okay, I heard what I heard. And I was like, so Scott, I'm curious, hearing you say that, what does a spiritual experience mean to you? Because like I wanted to get the context. Like I have my context for what a spiritual experience means for me, but like I want to hear it in his words of like, where is he coming from in using the term spiritual experience? And he was like, I guess to put it in like a simplistic term, it's knowing that there's something greater than me, like being able to look at those mountains and know something greater than me, something that I cannot explain, something that I cannot even quantify, made that, created that. Like,
Yeah.
how are we even here? And it's like, that conversation can start to just expand
Yeah.
exponentially when
Yeah.
you really start leaning into it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was beautiful to know that he feels the same way I feel when out in nature. Like I've shared before on the podcast, like love is my
Mm.
religion and nature is my church. Like
Mm.
that's how I
Mm.
feel when I'm out in nature. Is it really feels like I am in constant communication with
Mm.
God, with spirit, with source, with something
Mm.
greater than myself,
Mm.
that if I actually stop to try and think about it, I almost can't think about it because I can't even begin to grasp an
Mm.
understanding of the beauty that our nature is, like the
Mm.
gift that we have to be able to be witness to all of that, the gift
Mm.
that it is to be able to walk, the gift that it is to be able to breathe. Like
Mm.
that's why these experiences can be so life changing, because
Mm.
when you are out in nature, whether with other people or whether solo, and you disconnect from social media, you disconnect from the tech, you just are there with the isness of you, of
Mm.
nature, of
Mm.
taking
Mm.
one step in front of another, like the things that can unfold, the things that you can witness within yourself, and the growth that can happen over those miles is absolutely incredible. Like the person
Mm.
that I was when I hit the trail at
Mm.
Surprise Creek Trailhead, and the person that I was when I exited the trail at Snoqualmie Pass, I was a completely different person. And it's wild at how
Absolutely.
many times I've said this throughout my life, of how many times I've become a different person through
Mm.
the realizations, through the experiences, through the growth moments. Like
Mm. Mm.
several times throughout that trip, I thought I was going to quit. I was like, day 3, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, this is the shortest day. And like, we're going to be able to get to the lake and kind of make the decision of like, do we turn around and just make this a shorter trip, or do we keep going? Because the idea of doing another 40 miles is like overwhelming when I've only done 20. And how many times these stories were coming up into my mind, and yet being there with two other individuals that are also
Mm.
pushing themselves and are also wanting to
Mm.
continue and are also wanting to push through
100%. Yeah.
was just like, okay, well, I can't bail out.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
I'm not going to be that guy. Like,
Yeah.
Evan's hiking with blisters on both of his pinky toes and a giant blister on the
Mm.
arch of one of his feet. Like, I don't have blisters. My feet are just sore. Like,
Mm.
so it, it kind of emphasizes the idea that as much as we want to do things on our own, doing
Mm.
things with others is going to exponentially increase the rate in which we can grow
Mm.
because of those friction points,
Mm.
because of that healthy competition, because of that drive that someone can bring
Mm.
into something. Like when we were talking about goals earlier, right? Like, maybe you have a goal that's beyond what somebody else can fathom, but maybe your goal isn't even lofty enough because somebody else can look at that and be like, hey, you're not reaching far enough.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Like now I'm thinking to myself of like, could I do 100 miles? Like, could I do more than that? I mean, I'm going on
Yeah.
another hike tomorrow that is either going to be 11 or 13 miles, depending upon whether I choose to do a little summit
Mm.
once I get to the upper lake. Um, and it's like before that trip, I wouldn't have thought about doing that as a day hike. I would have done that as an overnight trip. So
Yeah.
I could do half of it one day,
Mm.
camp, and then do the other half the other day. Now I'm
Mm.
just like, I've I've done 10, 11, 12,
Yeah.
13,
Mm.
19 miles in one day. So I can do 11 or
Yes.
13 and just do it in a day hike and still have a good time. So
Mm.
it's like now the expanse in which I'm looking at trail systems, the
Mm. Mm.
expanse in which I'm looking at different routes that I never would have
Mm.
considered before. So my world has grown.
Yeah. Your range is just becoming bigger. Yeah.
It's one of the meta
Absolutely.
skills we always talk about in our training is that
Yeah.
range, like how
Mm.
and range not just in your ability to handle stress, not just range in
Mm.
your ability to put
Mm.
in miles, but like expanding your range expands all capacities of your life.
Mm.
And when
Yeah.
you expand all capacities of your life, you have to start to re-look at your goals and aspirations.
Mm. That is beautiful because thinking back when we started our conversation, I asked you about what goals are and why we are thriving to reach a goal at all. What does this term purpose actually means? Finding my purpose in life, thriving for my purpose in life, meaning for life. Um, and what I love what you said right now was this expansion in experience, because I think that's what it is all about. It is just to expand your range of experience in your lifetime, which comes with achieving a goal, because it is something like you're setting up a goal. It's like, I want to reach that, and through that you have to on that path you have to expand,
Mhm.
otherwise you will not reach the goal.
Mhm.
You have to learn, you have to maybe go through some friction, some form of stress, which then will definitely expand your nervous system, because you have to adapt towards it. Otherwise, you fall back, and then you haven't reached the goal. So you have to train more to come to the goal. So it's very interesting. It's a learning process. Life is about learning, and learning means to expand your experience, to expand your nervous system, to expand your capabilities. But we always mix that up with, and this is also the term of like growth, or becoming a better version, a higher self. All of that points to this um, picture of me becoming better. But it's not about better. It's about just being more, having a greater experience of life. I don't know if that makes sense. But when I, for example, reflect back on my life, where I was traveling a lot and living in different countries, every time when I moved into a different country, it came with friction, it came with fear, it came with a lot of stress. But doing that just gave me such a bigger perspective on my own capabilities, and my experience grew in that process. Yeah. So was that now some, like, is it like a growth? Like, did I become better? No. Like, it's not about better. It's not to put a value onto it. It's just the fact that I experienced more instead of just being in one place and having my day-to-day life and just repeating the same course day to day. Then I become very, very specifically good in one thing. I become an expert in one thing if I just put my whole attention to one thing. But does my experience grow from that? My overall experience of life? No. So in that term, maybe it's good to become a generalist than a specialist.
Mm.
Maybe life is putting us into so many, like throwing us into so many challenges, because we need to become generalists to experience life and taste life from different angles instead of just focusing on one thing. And this is what our mind was putting us into. Like, our mind wants clarity, our mind wants like planning ahead, wants to be specialized in one thing. But our mind is not the driver, our mind is a tool. It's good to understand things and for the moment to specialize maybe in the language. I need the language to understand in that country, or I need to understand the cultural habits. And so this is like specialization for the moment, and then change again, and then focus on other things. And what I just want to also address to was this beautiful phrase that you said around nature, and that Scott um, explained that seeing the mountains, he felt a kind of spiritual experience. And you said that as soon as you are in nature, you see like a bigger picture of life. You see
Yeah.
yourself in a more wholer way, and it makes so much sense because when we are, again, we talked about like we are nature, but where we are living, what we are created, the societies that we created are created out of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is thought. This is thought. This is a manifestation of a thought. So everything that we create around us, that we surround ourselves with, is created by ourselves, by thought, by our mind.
Yep.
As soon as we get out of thought, if we go out of society and
Mm-hmm.
go into nature, nature is something that hasn't been created by the mind. So therefore, we immediately lose the connection to the ego and to the mind, because it reflects us the divine that we are made of.
Mm-hmm.
So like the essence that we are beneath the mind, like, and this is so beautiful that, and I totally resonate with what Scott was saying, because I had a very, very similar experience when I was in Canada 15 years ago, when I was standing in front of Lake Laberge in the Yukon, and I was looking at the river, and that was one of my first deep, deep spiritual experiences, a spiritual awakening moment for me. I can also share the picture. I have a picture from it. This is
Yeah.
so deep. Yeah.
Before you go into that, I'd love if you could just, because I want to ask you the same question
Mm,
that I asked to Scott. Like, what does a spiritual experience mean to you? Like,
mm,
what does it feel like? What what are you sensing? What are you being in awareness of in that moment that dictates something as being a spiritual experience?
Hmm. As soon, like a spiritual experience for me is if I experience the very essence of my being. Yeah. When I'm in this experience of oneness,
Mm, okay.
of nature. And this can be and this is why I resonate what you shared, the moment that you had with Scott, and in this beautiful um, panorama in front of you. As soon as I am in nature, out of the mind, out of society, then there's no filter. Like if I'm in a city, I mean, I can drop in, but then I have to focus on my awareness, which also then expands and becomes this oneness, this experience of oneness. But when I'm in nature, the oneness is reflected to me directly through my senses. So this is why I think the majority of us have such an experience. Maybe we can't put words to it, but we feel some kind of ease. We feel like kind of resonance happening somatically, emotionally. Yeah. So that there is this deep sense of I am not just the ego. I am not just the persona. I feel that I am that.
Yeah.
I don't maybe have name for it, but this is what we call divine, God, whatever name we put onto it. But this deep sense, this deep connection that we have of I am all of that.
Yeah, it's
I'm
that
part of that.
oneness
The
that you
oneness,
said. Like,
exactly.
and the reason I wanted to ask that is because it's interesting at how, even though we might all choose to use different words,
Mm,
I'm recognizing by asking this question of what does a spiritual experience mean to people, we're all saying the same thing. It's this
yeah.
realization that we're a part of a greater whole, even though that's an inevitable experience. Like there's no language to truly be able to articulate it.
Mm,
But when you have an experience like that, you cannot deny
mm,
that there is something greater out there, and we are a part of that, an
mm,
intricate part. Like I do believe each and every one of us has a vital role. It's a whole reason why we're here in the time that we're here. Our
mm,
soul could choose
mm,
to incarnate at any point in time in any way, shape, or form. And yet, this
mm,
is the body, this is the time, and this is the life it chose.
mm, mm.
And
Yeah.
yet, how many of us are living life wanting to live differently than the way that we're living?
Mm,
And in a way, to me, this kind of like comes back to that whole idea of like, when we get outside of that comfort zone, when we get upset when things don't go the way that we plan, it's because we're constantly trying to control so much
mm,
instead of just accepting that there is more of a majority of things that we can't control than what we can control. And it's actually better to just surrender to life and let it unfold in the way that it unfolds and deal with what things unfold than
mm.
trying to control every single facet of how things unfold, because it's
Exactly.
impossible.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that you have control of is your body and your own perception of what life is. Like if I and I had a very interesting conversation with the researcher I met this week
Mhm.
about free will. Actually, also we because I'm also now working again uh, with researchers for somatic to understand like deeper to do studies around breathwork and to understand what effects breathwork has on our body and psyche. And we went into this conversation about free will, and he said like we don't have free will because everything is based on patterns that we got from trauma and transgenerational patterns that are basically forming our whole behavior. And I said, yes, that's true. But there's also consciousness, and there's like being the witness of the patterns and being the witness of what is not integrated that we maybe carry from our ancestors in us and from culture and whatever conditioning we experience. We have the capability as human beings to transcend and to also being in this observer role of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And being consciousness is for me something like free will, as you want, because consciousness chose this body of Samir, like this vessel here, and is experiencing life through this vessel. But somehow it's not just trapped in it. It's not just like a programmed avatar that is just running around. I mean, you can see the program, you can change the program. You can change your wires. You can rewire. There's neuroplasticity. We understand more and more in science that this is not just a fixed entity, persona. Epigenetics, all of that points towards that we can change. And this is also part of evolution. We have to change. We have to adapt to certain situations. And the more conscious we become, the more we can also direct that. And this is what you also shared beautifully on your trip, where you just said like after you went out of your window of tolerance, and yes, you snapped, you went into the fight or flight, but you came back, and then you witnessed the pattern. You witnessed what drove you into that pattern, and then you could change it. So this, I think, uh, this points towards kind of a free will. I mean, I know this whole discussion about free will, it's very, can also go very deep into a rabbit hole. But I think this is beautifully to just maybe also for the listeners here and who are watching the podcast to understand that we are not just fixed in our patterns.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of space that we can encounter, that we can nourish. And in that space, we are able to change the direction. And then comes again what I asked you about purpose, and that we all have like a blueprint that we have to maybe live.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm really not sure. I don't have an answer to it. What really resonates with me, what you also shared, is like to being in this experience of what unfolds in front of you. Yeah. Instead of controlling everything, to be in this surrender and fully experience it, what unfolds in front of you. And by that, it's just no matter where you are and what situation you are, everything is part of your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So even the frictions, even the suffering that is maybe that you are going through is part of an experience that you're allowed to witness with this beautiful body. And I think there also comes this free will of like, yeah, I'm willingly choosing to experience that. Don't try to subconsciously avoid it or try to change my life. Maybe it's about see what comes and see what you can, how you can experience it in a way that you're okay with it, that you're surrendering into it in beauty and love and compassion.
Yeah. 100%.
Mm.
It reminds me of that quote that Alan Watts shared of like, you're of no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago.
Mm.
You know, I think that is that idea of like at any point in time, you can choose to be a different person.
Mm.
But the only way that you can start to be a different person is letting go of the things that don't allow you to be that person.
Yeah.
And like this whole idea of, you know, finding your purpose or following that soul blueprint or like getting on the path of your life, I don't think is wrapped up around what you do or don't do.
Mm.
It's how you are being.
Mm.
And you touched on this throughout our talk today, of like this societal conditioning, this parental conditioning, like all of these habits and behaviors that are handed down to us that then we adopt and think that that's just how we're supposed to show up. But at any given point, we have the opportunity to say, I actually don't like being that way. How
Mm.
do I want to be?
Mm. Mm.
And like, I don't like the way that it feels when I get angry. I don't like the way that
Mm.
it feels when I get frustrated. So I've slowly worked on trying to find like, what is the root of that dislike? Because all of
Mm.
those sensations are just emotions, right? Like anger isn't
Exactly.
inherently good or bad. It just is.
Mm.
Joy
Mm.
isn't inherently good or bad. It just is. And like when
Right.
we are living in isness, then any of those experiences can put a smile on our face
Mm.
because
Mm.
of the perspective that we have of that we are just the experiencer moving through each of those things from moment to moment to moment, knowing that the next moment can be different and the next moment can be different and the
Yeah.
next moment can be different. But I am going to go as far as saying, like, societally, I feel
Mm.
that we have this inherent desire for things not to change. Like you can see this
Mm. Mm.
in like this fascination with staying young and not having
Yeah.
wrinkles or not having gray hair.
Yeah.
And it's inevitable.
Mm.
We all will get old.
Yeah.
Some
We
of
all
us
die.
will get older than others.
Yeah.
I had a friend who passed away last year at 36.
Yeah.
My grandfather just celebrated his 98th birthday.
Mm.
We don't know how much time we have.
Mm.
But what I do know is that I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't want to spend any more time being somebody other than I like to be or I want
Mm.
to be.
Mm. Yes. But that's like, I love that because it reflects that you are already who you are. It's just like to realize it and to live it. And that's
Exactly.
like going beyond or penetrating the conditioned pattern that conditions you to be something else that you are. And maybe that is something that we call then a blueprint, because the blueprint is who you are. And the more you can rest in yourself, which sounds very um, obvious, like yeah, I'm myself. Who am I? Like who else am I? No, it's I think the most difficult challenge that we are all facing, because as you said, like if you just look on the societal conditioning, we are all just so deeply running towards idols and how to be and how should I look like, how should I be financially, what kind of status do I need to have. All of that are conditioned things.
Yeah.
All of that is creating a norm, like you're normalized. This is how you should be, but this is not necessarily the expression that wants to express through your conscience, that wants to express through this body, to use spiritual terms. And then again, like then surrender comes into it, because if I surrender more into the moment, then I'm closer to myself
Right.
instead of following subconscious patterns that are conditioned. And this again, to have a full circle, this is again like why nature, being in nature as nature, is so powerful, because it just immediately pulls away all the filters of the condition. It just gives you the purity of who you are. And then you have this expression of, yes, there's oneness, but there's oneness in this body, the drop in the ocean in
Mhm.
the drop,
Yep.
right? So in this duality, to fully live that, and this is maybe what is living your purpose is. I'm just thinking loud while I'm talking.
Yeah, yeah,
I just try. I said to you, like, I really, I am in this process still to just to understand it also mentally, and I think this is a beautiful conversation. Thank you for, thank you for inspiring me into that, because this is very, very important, I think, to understand, to really understand it.
yeah. Well, and I think that does continue to showcase, like, hey, maybe hiking or backpacking isn't your thing. Maybe
Mm.
going out in the middle of nowhere isn't your thing. You don't necessarily have to venture 65 miles out into the middle of
No,
nowhere in order to have these experiences. Like, you literally can just go to a local park, your backyard, a local
absolutely.
forest. The idea is that you're taking time away from your normal patterns, habits, and routines, in a way creating a pattern interrupt. You're taking
Mm.
a moment to just reflect. And that's the thing that I love so much about hiking and backpacking, is that it gives me a lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to be in my own thoughts,
Mm.
to
Mm.
utilize the surroundings have no agenda for me. They're
Mm.
not asking anything from me. They're not wanting anything for me.
Mm.
Everything is just being as it's being. The
Mm.
deer that I encounter on the path is just being a deer. The black bear I encountered on the path is just being a
Mm.
black bear. The squirrel, the chickmunk, the pika, the marmots, the
Mm.
birds, like all of it, they're just being what they are. They're not
Mm.
trying, the bird isn't trying to be a bee, and the bee isn't trying to be a butterfly, and the bear isn't trying to be a bee. Like, they all
Mm.
know their path. They all know who they all are. They all know their role in society. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that I think we as the human species have, like, lost that.
Mm. Mm.
And like, in thinking, still kind of like, and again, just like vocalizing out as my thought process is moving through, of this idea of purpose, and this
Mm.
idea of that we all have to find our purpose in life. What
Mm.
if our purpose in life was just to be us?
Mm.
That's it. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you do with your life. It doesn't matter who you're with. It doesn't
Mm.
matter where you go. The only thing that matters is that you're
Mm.
being you.
I agree with you so much, because I'm not agreeing, I'm resonating with you, because it's there's a difference between agreeing. It's like coming to an agreement. No, it's not
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah,
It's like a resonation,
yeah.
because there's truth in it, and resting in your beingness. And I love what you said. It's not that you necessarily need to do the adventure 3.0 trip, but what 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 is equally powerful in that conversation that we have, and sharing this deep connection with beingness, is being in connection with life. And you literally can just look at a flower,
Mhm.
and that's exactly the same profound experience that is reflecting back to you. If you look at a flower and you're not naming the flower, if you're not creating a concept around the flower, because if you're creating a concept around it, then that's the end of your curiosity. It's the end of diving deeper, because okay, this is a rose, done,
Period.
okay,
Yeah.
period, right? No, look at it, and try to really penetrate it, like really go deeper into it with your awareness. See through the form. And what you realize is that this is life. There's exactly the same spark that is in here, the same resonance. And there's so much beauty that you can get deeply, deeply immersed with it if you're just looking at life. If you have a dog or a cat, just look at it without a concept, just being with it, with this isness. And yes, of course, if I'm standing in front of, I don't know, the Grand Canyon, then this is like so powerful, so energetically powerful and overwhelming, that it just it cracks my mind. It literally cracks my mind, because like, how can this be in front of me? Like, this is just unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
But this is because we are conditioned to have so many concepts, and the greater things are, the bigger the things are. If you see a mountain in front of you, the harder our mind can fathom it and can create a concept around it. So yeah, surrendering into the beauty that is in front of you, which is life, which cannot be done by, I mean, of course, you can also look at the pen, for example, that I'm holding in my hand, and see the isness of it,
Mm-hmm.
the existence of the pen. But it's also created by thought. And this is difficult because our mind is very, very tricky, and it's difficult to penetrate through that with your awareness, because it's created by mind. But it's harder if it's a living being.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
like easier to go in.
this is like the paradox of the human experience, because it's like when you talk about that rose, and I was thinking to myself of like, okay, one of the, hermetic principles is like everything is mental, right? So like
Mm.
everything started with a thought.
Yeah.
Where did the rose come from? Who had the thought of the
Mm.
rose? And like, not trying to open up a whole nother can of worms and like stretch this conversation even further, because like, we're getting close to our time, but
Yeah.
like that's where my mind goes of like, okay, who had the thought for the duck?
Mm. Mm.
Who had the thought for the deer? Who had the thought for the oak tree versus a cedar? Like,
Mm.
this is the idea of that true spiritual experience within nature, because when you allow yourself to expand to that degree, to recognize like, okay, if everything that is in existence started with a thought, who was the one thinking the thought? And if we're all oneness, then does that mean I was the one thinking in the thought? Like, did I actually bring the rose into existence? Am I
Yeah.
bringing the rose into existence just from my mental state that's projecting that? Or does it
Mm.
actually exist outside of me?
Mm.
Like this is like when
Yeah,
I
we're
talk
going
about
now
nature
deeper.
being a spiritual experience, like these are the avenues that my mind really
Mm.
starts to go into, which I
Mm.
do believe is what leads to nature allowing for these experiences to start happening, because it's like more and more synchronicities start happening that lead you deeper and deeper into those same thought processes. And so
Yeah.
it's like
Mm. Mm.
the more we know, the more we realize that we don't know. And that,
Yes.
I think, is one of those driving forces in life that can, in a way, almost be a purpose in and of itself.
Mm. Yes. And I think the term, the more I know, no, the more I think I know is that I don't know, is pointing to the mind, like to the logos, to the intellect, which cannot experience itself, or the tool cannot experience the 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 owner of the tool. Like, if consciousness is the foundation and the mind is the tool, then the consciousness can experience the tool, but the tool cannot experience consciousness.
Right.
Yeah. So then this is like the tricky part with the mind. It has its limitations. So it can't go out of its boundaries. And if it's around the foundation of life, of cosmos, of consciousness, then we are trapped in the limitation of the mind. But if we are identifying with our mind, then we're just creating loops and loops and loops. And this is also the paradox, where we are ending up in fractals that are just continuously repeat themselves because we are in our thoughts. It's an interesting field when you try to use your mind. We are talking from our mind, of course, um, and trying to understand what life is, what consciousness is. And then we easily lose ourselves into concepts again, or into dreams almost.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what it is really. And this is again like the more I think I know, the more I know that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's can't get out of it. You can't get out of the code. We're talking about the simulation theory.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the code. But who
Yeah.
is the programmer of the code? That's interesting. I don't know.
It's wild to be a human living this experience, to say the least.
It is. But I think that's coming back to what we talked about today. It's the experience. I think this
Yeah.
is why we are here. It's just to experience it, and also to be. I don't want to discredit the mind. I think maybe it sounds like that I am condemning the mind and saying it's our enemy. No, it's beautiful to have the mind. This is the part of us that allows us to also experience life, to use it as a tool and to create a life around it.
But it's a
But
beautiful servant and a horrible master.
exactly, it shouldn't be in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
and it should be used as a tool. And yeah, just to be in this awe of life and be, as you said, like being in love with it, like experiencing this temple around you and just being in deep compassion that you're allowed to be in this experience,
Yeah.
which is hard. I don't want to romanticize it. Of course, I sound different when I'm suffering,
Yeah.
but if I go through this suffering, maybe I can witness this then still as something beautiful.
Beautifully
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
Brother, thank you so much for this deep dive and triggering my neurons to go deeper, which I really always appreciate being in your presence.
That's what it's all about, helping each other to expand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
thank you for the space and letting me share about the experience. I mean, there's so many other things that happened during that trip and throughout that trip, and so many other realizations. Like, we'd be here for many more hours to go into it. But like, I just love to invite the listeners that, if you haven't spent a lot of time out in nature recently and you haven't maybe felt this like connection to oneness, like, I'd invite you to go take a walk, like
Mm,
go find somewhere that you can be on your own, away from other people, and just really be with the isness of nature for a period of time and see what's reflected back to you.
mm. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, just being it. I always say like there's actually nothing more familiar than just being with yourself, being
Yeah.
yourself. Again, we mystify it so much in so many scriptures and religions, but just to be yourself is the thing that comes naturally if we're just allowing it. And if for some of you who are really for whom this is really difficult, or you hear it for the first time, I totally recommend to read Eckhart Tolle's books. I think he is a very good start for experiencing the just beingness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What is it?
that's
Look at my bookshelf here. The Power of Now and A New Earth
yeah, the power
both
of now.
feed off of one of each other.
Yeah, so the power of now was for me also one of the big uh, eye openers.
Mm.
So highly recommend that, and just yeah, just be connected with your heart, be in love with life, no matter what happens outside. Thanks everyone. Thanks brother. And looking forward to our next deep dive.
Yeah. A joy as always. And we'll catch you all on the next one.
Yeah. Bye everyone.